So 50 Cent recently appeared on EYL, and I only want to spend about 10 minutes on this. He recently appeared on EYL. Actually, he was at the last Invest Fest, and he was giving his thoughts on Diddy and the whole situation, and I thought that it would be interesting to add this. So make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let me see if I can fast forward it to the spot where he started talking about that. Let me see. Is it that? Is it that?
And then it worked out. It worked out. Like, you know, and my audience, I like to say this, my core audience was in college during 2000.
Black-owned, like you said, liquor company. Talk about that, because I know you had challenges before that, right? So talk about that whole situation.
Yeah, you have the experience with major corporations like me, my particular experience with Beam Centauri. It was great in the beginning. It's great for us to work for them. It's not so cool when you start to own things. You see what I'm saying? So I made a lot of money with them too. Like, there's a point, they did a deal that mirrored what Puffy's deal with Diageo was for Ciroc. So he didn't have ownership of that at any point, but he was getting a lot of money, like almost like $60 million a year at one point. So when you see him go to Daily On is when you see him have some issues.
We all thought, and again, I'm going to bring this and I'm going to throw this in y'all face for those of y'all that are OGs of this show. We all thought that Diddy owned Ciroc. And this is how I know that everybody actually rolled and loved Diddy. That when he got the key to the city, everybody was celebrating. We all thought that Diddy owned Ciroc. Right? Until I said, hey, man, he never owned that junk in the first place. He never owned it. He never owned it. And I went back to the videos and I'm like, yo, listen, he never owned it. He never had percentage in it. He was just a marketer. He was a well-paid, high employee that got paid based off of how many cases that he moved. The more cases that he moved, the bigger that his payouts was, as much as maybe even more than $60 million, similar to what 50 is telling you right now. Now, let's be clear. $60 million in a year is nothing to sneeze at. It's nothing to sneeze at. That's great marketing. But in order to sell it to you guys, he had to give the illusion of ownership. The illusion of ownership. The minute that he started to push back, instead of taking your money, taking your 60 M's, and leveraging that money, because let's be clear, I don't have a problem with people being very, very well paid. But the minute that he said that I want to own what I think I deserve instead of what I negotiated, that's when it became a problem.
And they not. It gets bad. You know, and these people have really strong relationships. Don't think that the civil case doesn't turn into a criminal case faster because he's making them uncomfortable.
Which is the same thing that Ross is doing. It's the same thing that Ross is doing. I don't believe, even for 1 second, I do not believe Luke Belair. Yeah, we got this Luke Belair. It's just that Ross is playing his role because that's good money for him. Ross probably never made as much money in his life in any concert, on any nothing. And salute to him because he hustling, he getting it. But I don't believe even for 1 second that Ross owned Luke Belair. And that's okay. It's okay. But the illusion of you owning it is the reason why the community supports it in the first place. You can't tell me that it tastes better than anything else. Most people don't even understand the difference between a cognac and a whiskey. You know what I'm saying? They don't know nothing about that. They just drink whatever their favorite celebrity tell them to drink, and they develop a taste for it, and that's the end of it. Shannon Sharp was just talking about how it is that he wanted to be a brand ambassador for Hennessy. And so Hennessy wasn't messing with him because he used to bring Hennessy on the show that he did with Skip. And so he wound up getting a deal with being able to develop his own name brand sake, Le Portier. Do we know whether or not Shannon Sharp actually owns the brand or not, or if he has a percentage in it? I don't know. But a lot of times what you're seeing is brand ambassadors. You're not seeing ownership in these companies, right? And they're getting paid a lot of money. But let me tell you something. What you do with the money is what sets you apart. Get the money, get the bag, and then parlay that bag into something bigger. When I make whatever it is that I make, it doesn't matter if it's a business deal, don't matter if it's corporate America, don't matter if it comes from content creation, sponsorships, YouTube, or whatever. And again, I'm dropping a video inside of the Patreon today. It's already scheduled to go out this afternoon. Dropping a video on the Patreon today showing you what my 8 streams of income is. I don't sit on it and just buy stuff with it. I leverage it, parlay it in order to reduce my tax bill, and then I invest it in something that I actually own. The goal is to get the money. The goal is to source money. You can have ownership in something and it don't make you no money whatsoever. You can own 100% of nothing. I've proved that with other platforms that I've been on before, right? The minute that I left, what is the platform really worth? You can own 100% of nothing. Ownership means nothing unless revenue. So 2 things have to be true at the same time. Revenue, ownership. Now, I'd rather have a significant amount of revenue versus ownership of nothing, which I can then parlay that into the long-term play, which will then allow for me to have a power play, right? And so I believe personally what Diddy is saying or what 50 is saying. Well, let me get further into the video.
That's a big part of it. You know what I mean? Like, you look, when you go to the spirits businesses, it's not governed. They got a discus board that they created, right? If you got 2 companies that are $3 billion a year, and Beam Centauria and Diageo, the distribution level, it's very hard for you to get things to a point where you can do the numbers, the right numbers, the amount. So it's kind of like they incentivize the sales force by giving them box bonuses. And then when you sell a product, you get the bonuses off the boxes that's there. But you make that no matter what product you're selling. So if you sell Hennessy or Remy out the gate, they start to put downward pressure on the new companies. You see, I had a lawsuit with Remy. They said that because I had an oval-shaped bottle, that there was some sort of product confusion, and I'm like, where? It's a big B in the middle of the fucking bottle. Like, you don't own the shape, the whole shape of the bottle. You know? And then we had went in there for a little while until it came, I started saying shit like, 1738, I bet they had slaves. Then shit got uncomfortable and it was like, look, relax, okay? Can we make donations to existing foundations to make you feel happy? Yeah. Yeah, and it went away. But they do spend $63 million targeting African-American male consumers a year. Remy, specifically. You know, so that's why.
What's the return on that investment?
That would be uncomfortable, me making those statements, and it's risk versus reward. It doesn't make sense to fight the fight. So they said, let's just let that go. You know? But, you know, they ripped me off too, man. God damn it. They did. They ripped me off. Because one of the head guys that has a sales for Beam Centauria. They set up a play and they were able to send a letterhead from Beam Centauria over to France and get the champagne company to commit to coming out and talking to them. And they have these things like it's where you put agency fees. Like someone who contacted your grower or a person who was producing the cognac for you and made the deal for you. And they put agency fees on the product. To give you an example of the scheme that they put together, it's like, say you wanted to sell t-shirts and I go to China for you. And I tell the people in China, how much can you make the shirt for? And they tell me $4. And then I come back and I tell you, yo, they said $8. And then every time you send the check to the producer, they just put $4 on the side for them every time. So they ciphered off about $6 million from me in the very beginning. And then the legal fees has been almost a whole nother, almost $10 million. So I put like $70 million into Branson and Lashim and Dewar going as a company. This is for my son. It's SI Spirits. Like later, he can take this one. You know.
But you also went to Congress with Ben Crump. You went to.
So I think the point that he was making, and you can obviously see and illustrate that he was basically telling us that it's a different game that's being played. And earlier in this, he actually had a conversation. Let me see if I can rewind it.
That's completely black owned.
Well, I want to talk about that, right? Science Spirits.
Yeah.
So,
especially in this crowd, is access to capital, especially for black entrepreneurs, black business founders, which is the same way that entrepreneurs are facing when it comes to getting done.
A new venture, I finance it. Like I usually use my money to start. And then as we get into new positions, I may take investment dollars. But like if you look at Branson Cognac and Lashim and Dewar Champagne, I own the entire company. Like those, it's black owned.
Well, I want to talk about that, right? Science Spirits.
Yeah.
So, all right, Science Spirits, completely black owned, like you said, liquor company. Talk about that, 'cause I know you had challenges before that, right? So talk about that whole situation.
Yeah, you have the experience with major corporations like my particular experience with Beam Suntory. It was great in the beginning.
Remember that. It's always great in the beginning, but our desire as humans is ultimately to earn more, is to want more. So whereas you're happy to do the deal in the beginning, ultimately it turns into a situation where it's like, what about all of this that I put into it? What about the fact that y'all wouldn't be anything or this brand wouldn't be as good without me and all of that stuff, right? And you get what you negotiate, not what you think you deserve. Again, let me say it again for the people in the back. You get what you negotiate, not what you think that you deserve. And also inside of this whole stream, and I'm not going to keep playing it because I have an allocated amount of time that I wanted to spend on this. He says that Diddy's dispute with Diageo ultimately probably turned into, actually he didn't say probably, he said it expedited the process of him getting arrested. He said Diddy's dispute with Diageo expedited the process of him getting arrested. Now, two things can be true at the same time. Of course, Diddy was doing freak offs. That goes without saying. I don't think that that's anything that that we could disagree on. The problem with that part of the conversation also is that, again, I do not believe that it's just surface level content. I don't believe that this is all on the surface. I believe personally, and this is just my opinion, I believe personally that Diddy is the fall guy as a result of getting too ambitious and getting too big for his britches and going against people that were much, much, much more powerful than him, that's not as visible as him. Does he have skeletons in his backyard? Absolutely. Diddy been operating for 30 plus years doing whatever it is that he wanted to do? Diddy been operating for 30 plus years doing what he wanted to do? All of a sudden, everything just come crashing down within a year right after you get the key to the city and you file a lawsuit against Diageo saying that you want ownership?